Hello, I'm Mike Stenta. I'm the lead developer of farmOS, and this is a summary of the changes in the latest release. The latest release was farmOS 7.x-1.0-beta12. And the beta 12 is sort of the tag on the end there indicating that we're not quite at a 1.0 release, but we've had 12 beta releases so far, and we're getting closer every day. So here I'll share my screen and we can take a look at some things. So first of all, here are the release notes for the beta 12 release. You can get to these at drupal.org/project/farm/releases/7.x-1.0-beta12. An easier way to get there is to simply go to drupal.org/project/farm, scroll down to the downloads and recommended releases section, and you'll see beta 12 right here. So if you click that link, it'll take you to the release notes, as well as links to download the new version. You can also look at all the releases, so you can see older release notes here. So beta 12 had a bunch of small things, minor cleanups, some bug fixes, and also some big new features. So I'll try to go over some of those. Here's the roadmap that I was kind of working from for the beta 12 release. That's at drupal.org/node/2705517. So I try to maintain roadmaps as I'm going along for each release. They kind of change organically as I'm going through, and I add and remove things right up until the point that it's released. That's just during these beta phases, it's going to be pretty flexible like that. But as we get into the 1.0 and beyond, it'll probably be more structured. So you can feel free to take a look at that if you want. But here, I'll just start showing you some things. So one of the nice things in the beta 12 release is that input and harvest logs can now be applied to any type of asset in farmOS. So previously, only plantings could have input and harvest logs. So here is a garlic planting, and you can see down here there's a couple of input logs and a couple of harvest logs. So previously, input and harvest logs were unique to planting assets in farmOS. But obviously, inputs and harvests aren't unique to just crops. They can also apply to livestock, maple, mushrooms, what have you. So I generalized that, and now you can add inputs and harvests to animals as well as any other asset type. So the asset types currently available are plantings, animals, bee colonies, which is a new one I'll talk about, equipment, maple, mushrooms, and sensors. So now harvests and inputs can be applied to any of those. So it just makes it a lot easier for you to kind of keep track of inputs to all kinds of assets on your farm now. The other new features in the crop module. First of all, previously there was this concept of plantings, which is what the assets are called. So you have all of your plantings that are actually in the field. And then you have crops, and crops are more of the general idea of a planting or a variety. So a planting would be of a specific crop. So if you have, for example, you might have a certain variety of corn, but then you have your specific planting of that variety. So that was kind of the difference between plantings and crops. That's always been kind of a confusing point for people. So recently I just renamed crops to just be called crop/varieties, just to try to make that a little bit more obvious. I think eventually this might change even more, but right now that's how it works. Likewise, for animals, we used to have the concept of animals and animal types, and that was also sort of confusing. So I just renamed types to be species/breeds. So back with the plantings, another new feature now is that you can actually reference more than one crop in a planting. So for example, if I'm going to be planting peas and oats as a cover crop this winter, I can add a planting that's called the 2016 peas and oats cover crop. And in the crop/variety field, now I can add more than one. You just separate them with a comma. And now this planting is a planting that has a crop of both field peas and oats. So that's helpful, especially for cover crops and that sort of thing. In the livestock module, I added in a field for whether or not an animal is castrated. So this obviously is very useful for livestock like cattle. And it was a frequently requested feature, not something too hard to add. So now we have that, and you can set those on each animal. I also added the concept of medical logs. So in addition to activity logs, input logs, observations, movements, and harvests, now animals can also have a specific log type for medical records. And that's because a lot of organic certification or other official record-keeping requirements sort of need to have a separate list of medical logs that were added to an animal. So that's available now. Also, the offspring of an animal will now be listed on the animal's page itself. So if I scroll down past these logs of this animal, now I can see that these are the offspring of this particular animal. So that's just helpful to be able to see. Previously, you would have had to edit the animal and then go and look at the references there. Also, in general, we added this people page. So now if you go to farm/people, you can see all of the farmers in your site. You can see what their roles are. And you can add a person. You can also filter. So this is just sort of a shortcut. Previously, you were still able to see the people, but you kind of had to go through the normal Drupal user interface by going to admin/people. So this is nice. It just gives you a shortcut right from the dashboard here. Aside from that, we also did some work on the farm sensor module. So here's an example of a sensor that's running in a greenhouse up in New Hampshire. It's a temperature sensor made with a Raspberry Pi, and you can actually see a video on how to set this up. I don't have the link open, but if you go to the Twitter account GetFarmier and scroll down, you should see it was created by RJ Steinert, and it describes how to set up a Raspberry Pi using OpenPipeKit to pipe your data, temperature, sensor data, as well as lots of other types of sensors into farmOS. So this is just one example. We've had this module for a little while. The new thing now is that we have sensor alerts. So you can see these are stream of recent data that's come in from the sensor with a timestamp and a sensor value. So this is degrees Celsius. Now, if I go and edit this and scroll down, you can see the sensor settings. In the notifications here, you can actually add email addresses that you want the notification to go to. So that's really helpful. So you can kind of set a threshold, and if the temperature gets above that threshold or below that threshold, it'll send you an alert via email. You can also set it up to send you a text message. Most wireless carriers will allow you to essentially just send text messages as email. So you would just put your phone number and then your provider domain. We're going to add some documentation for how to set that up, but you can Google around to find. It's a pretty basic thing. So we also have a pretty good start on graphing for these for this data. It's a pretty simple thing. Basically, all I've been waiting for, or kind of essentially, I'm trying to find the best module to use, one that I know that will be around for a while and will provide enough flexibility in our graphing needs moving forward. So graphs should hopefully be included in the 1.0 of farmOS, and that'll just be really nice, especially for the sensor data, but also for things like harvests and observations and that kind of thing. let's see. So what else? Oh, the other thing is I added a new module called farmB. So if you go to drupal.org/project/farmB, this is actually an add-on module for farmOS. It doesn't come included with farmOS, so you actually have to download this separately and stick it into place. And it's still very much in beta. I've been starting a couple of beehives myself this year, so I wanted to be able to keep some records on that. So here's an example of a bee colony, and you get there through your normal assets. So you click on assets and then click on bee colonies, and that'll show you all of your colonies. So here's one that I have, and you can see you can record your activities, your observations with photos, inputs, movements, all the normal things that you can on most asset types. In the future, I'm probably going to add a dedicated hive inspection log type that has more specific things just for beekeeping. Like a checkbox to say whether or not the queen was present, specific information about what the food stores look like, and those kind of things. So if you have some ideas, feel free to go to drupal.org/project/farmB, and then click on this issue queue over here and create a new issue to suggest features or ideas. Or if you want to help out, you're more than welcome to. So that's kind of an overview of the beta 12 release. There's a lot of other things. A lot of contributed modules were updated, and a lot of the farm modules were updated. Bunch of bug fixes and little improvements. So if you're interested in the nitty-gritty details, you can check this out. Coming up next, I'm thinking about making the next release the actual 1.0 release. We'll see if that pans out or not. This is the issue for the 1.0 release. If you want to join in, it's drupal.org/node2537404. And again, these kind of will change organically as I'm going through. But there are some things that I definitely want to get done, and some things that I probably will get done, stuff that I might get done, a couple of bugs and other things I'd like to fix too. So if you want to see something specific in the 1.0 release, please chime in on here. Oh, another announcement I wanted to make is that I'll be giving a presentation at the NOFA Summer Conference on August 14th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. So it'll basically just be a general overview of farmOS, how to get started, how to contribute, and all that kind of thing. So if you're in the Northeast area and you're attending the NOFA conference, please come and check out the presentation. I'm hoping to record it also if the technology behaves. So look for that online too if you're not local. If you want to continue receiving updates on farmOS like this one, just go to farmyear.com and subscribe to the newsletter here. You can also follow us on Twitter at @GetFarmYear. So yeah, I'll be releasing new updates and things along the way, and that's where I'll kind of keep people updated on that. Also, if you're interested in using farmOS, consider signing up for a farmYear hosting account. It's free for 30 days and only $50 a year after that. You don't need to, obviously. farmOS is open source, so you can download and set it up yourself if you want to. You just need some knowledge of how to host a website and set up an Apache server with Drupal. There's some good documentation on doing that if you go to docs.farmos.org/installing. And this can kind of guide you through some of that process. But if you're not interested in kind of managing all that hosting yourself, consider trying farmOS hosting on farmYear. It's a service that I'm setting up to try to help people get started with farmOS, and also to sort of help support the ongoing development efforts. So if you're interested in just helping to support it, maybe consider signing up for an account. And that's about all I have for today. I hope you have a chance to try out farmOS beta 12, and I look forward to the 1.0 release coming up. Have a great summer.